This is Coffee with God, and I am Father Jose. Let us begin this day with the Word of God and a short reflection.
A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke, chapter 14, verses 1 to 3 and verses 7 to 11. The passage is taken from the Message version of the Bible. One time, when Jesus went for a Sabbath meal with one of the top leaders of the Pharisees, all the guests had their eyes on him, watching his every move. Right before him, there was a man hugely swollen in his joints. So Jesus asked the religion scholars and Pharisees present, "Is it permitted to heal on the Sabbath? Yes or no?" He went on to tell a story to the guests around the table, noticing how each had tried to elbow into the place of honor. He said, "When someone invites you to dinner, don't take the place of honor. Someone more important than you might have been invited by the host. Then he'll come and call out in front of everybody, 'You're in the wrong place. The place of honor belongs to this man.' Red-faced, you'll have to make your way to the very last table, the only place left. When you're invited to dinner, go and sit at the last place. Then, when the host comes, he may very well say, 'Friend, come up to the front.' That will give the dinner guests something to talk about. What I'm saying is, if you walk around with your nose in the air, you're going to end up flat on your face. But if you're content to be simply yourself, you'll become more than yourself." The Gospel of the Lord.
Reflections on the Holy Gospel according to St. Luke, chapter 14, verse 1 and 7 to 11. In Israel, a lunch on a Sabbath was an occasion for relatives and friends to meet and have a socialization time. After the time of liturgy in the synagogue, family and friends would move to a house for a meal and social gathering. Today's passage is to be placed in the context of the Sabbath lunch. At the end of the synagogue's liturgy, a Pharisee leader invited Jesus for a meal. The Jews followed a rigid etiquette at the table. Seats were allocated very carefully. People of honor always get the prominent seating. Seeing the inequality and discrimination even within a family setting, Jesus teaches not to crave places of honor. Respect cannot be demanded, rather it is to be earned. When we read this passage, please do not misunderstand that Jesus is teaching his listeners how to achieve honor and respect. Jesus has never cared for public recognition and admiration. He would not teach his listeners a crafty method to achieve glory. Imagine if you go to a public function and occupy the last seat with the hope of someone leading you to a better position. Your behaviour is hypocrisy. This is not the meaning of the gospel. Take a closer look at the passage. We realize Jesus is talking to his listeners as if he is the host, not as a guest. Luke has used this setting of the Sabbath meal to put up on the mouth of the Lord a lesson for the Christians of his community. Luke was facing dissensions and disagreements among the leaders of his community. The heads of various ministries desired to occupy the first places. It is an eternal problem of the church. Everyone should serve, but in practice, there is always someone who carries the attitude of the Pharisee and aspires for honorary titles, wants to excel, swells with pride, and even uses the celebration of the Eucharist as an occasion for self-celebration. This is a cancer that destroys our communities. It is not the Jesus who is seated at a meal who is giving this lesson today, but the risen Lord who turns to the Christians with a Pharisaic attitude in Luke's communities. This lesson is for the disciples who act as Pharisees who discriminate. And what does he say? He says, when you give a feast, invite instead the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. The poor, the blind, the crippled, and the lame represent those who walk without the light of the gospel and stumble, fall and hurt themselves and others, switching from one ear to the other. Jesus reminds his disciples that the feast was organized just for them. Woe to exclude them.